This stops scrolling. This is the kind of story you'll never forget. An innocent 8-year-old farm girl's ordinary walk home turned into a nightmare when cruel bullies went too far. But they didn't know who her mother was, and the truth waiting for them would shake the whole town. Before we dive in, hit that subscribe button so you never miss stories that will leave you breathless. The late summer sun spilled gold across the endless fields as 8-year-old Emma May Carter skipped along the dusty road that cut through her family's farm. Her pink backpack bouncing against her shoulders and a tune from the morning radio humming softly on her lips. Completely unaware that 3 older kids had been trailing her for nearly half a mile, their sneakers kicking up tiny clouds of gravel as they whispered cruel jokes and sharpened their plan. She was used to their snide comments at school, calling her barn girl or hay seed. But today their eyes glinted with a meaner sort of mischief, the kind that feeds on silence. And when the tallest of them, a broad-shouldered boy named Kyle, who wore the blue and yellow varsity jacket like a crown, signaled for the others to move in, the sound of Emma's footsteps became the only heartbeat in the wide, empty stretch of road. She heard them before she saw them, their laughter rising like a swarm of hornets, and though her stomach tightened she kept walking, remembering her mother's words about holding her head high and never showing fear. But the sudden crunch of gravel behind her was too close, too sharp, and in a blink Kyle stepped in front of her, blocking the sunlight, with his shadow as his friends flanked her like circling hawks, the heat from the road mixing with the cold twist of dread in her chest. "What's in the bag, farm girl?" Kyle sneered, the wooden baseball bat in his hand tapping the dirt with an impatient rhythm, and when Emma clutched the straps tighter he laughed. A sound that echoed across the empty fields, a sound that felt like a lock clicking shut. She tried to step back, but another boy pushed her shoulder, and the world tilted for a second, her sneakers sliding on the gravel. And before she could even cry out, the bat swung low, not at first to hurt, but to scare. Yet the edge of it clipped the side of her head with a thud that snapped the quiet afternoon in two, sending a shock of pain through her skull and a flash of white across her vision as she crumpled to the ground, the smell of dirt and iron filling her nose while the boys froze, startled by their own brutality, their breaths suddenly heavy in the wide stillness. And as Emma lay stunned, cheek pressed to the warm road, a distant thunder grew behind them, not from the sky but from the pounding hooves of a galloping horse carrying a rider whose fierce silhouette blazed against the horizon. The last person any of those bullies wanted to see, and the one whose identity would soon turn their cruel victory into the biggest mistake of their lives. Dust and panic swirled together as the thunder of hooves closed in, the bullies spinning toward the sound just in time to see a chestnut horse barreling down the road with a dark-haired rider crouched low, her eyes locked on them like a storm about to break. Emma blinked through the sting of grit and blood as the figure drew nearer, the powerful animal kicking up a trail of golden haze that turned the afternoon sun into a blaze behind her. And even before the horse skidded to a halt, Kyle's smirk had already cracked into fear, because everyone in the county knew that look, that soldier-straight posture, and the unmistakable presence of Rebecca Carter, Emma's mother, a decorated veteran whose reputation for courage and quick justice traveled faster than any rumor. In a single motion she swung down from the saddle, boots landing hard on the gravel as her voice cut like a whip, demanding to know what they thought they were doing, and the 3 boys shrank back, the bat now trembling in Kyle's hands like it had turned to ice, while Rebecca knelt beside her daughter with a gentleness that matched the fury blazing in her eyes, checking the bump on Emma's head and whispering a promise that everything would be all right before rising to her full height. A silent force of discipline and controlled rage that made the wide road feel suddenly very small. Rebecca's steady breath filled the tense silence as she squared her shoulders, the late afternoon light catching the bronze streaks in her dark hair, while the bullies shuffled backward, their earlier bravado dissolving like mist. With Emma safely leaning against the horse's flank, Rebecca's voice cut through the air, low but unyielding, demanding the boys explain themselves as neighbors began to edge out of their porches, drawn by the commotion, and Kyle's shaky excuses faltered when she stepped closer, her military training evident in each deliberate stride that made gravel crunch like warning drums, the weight of her presence pressing on them until the bat clattered from his hands. A murmur rippled through the small crowd. People knew of Rebecca's service overseas, of how she had once faced down armed insurgents to save a convoy of children, and that history now wrapped around her like invisible armor, lending her words the force of a courtroom verdict as she told the boys they would stay right there until the sheriff arrived. Emma watched wide-eyed as her mother placed a protective arm around her shoulders, the fury in Rebecca's gaze tempered only by the calm assurance she offered her daughter. And when the first wail of sirens drifted over the distant hills, the bullies' faces drained of color, the weight of consequences finally settling on their trembling frames as dusk deepened into a quiet, expectant blue. As the sheriff's cruiser rolled up the gravel drive, red and blue lights pulsing against the darkening sky, Rebecca tightened her arm around Emma, her voice steady but fierce while she gave a clear account of the attack. Every detail landing like a stone in the quiet night air. The deputies quickly separated the boys, their bluster gone as tears welled in their eyes when their parents, summoned by neighbors, arrived with faces etched in shock and shame. And the community that once turned a blind eye to their bullying now stood united behind Rebecca, whose calm authority left no doubt that justice would be served. Emma, her head bandaged but chin lifted bravely, clutched her mother's hand as the sheriff assured them that charges would be filed, and when he quietly thanked Rebecca for her courage and quick action, she simply nodded, the strength in her eyes reflecting a promise that no harm would ever reach her daughter again. As the last patrol car pulled away and the farmhouse settled into a soft hush beneath a sky glittering with stars, Emma nestled against Rebecca's side, whispering that she wanted to be as brave as her mom someday, and Rebecca, brushing a tear from her cheek, told her that bravery wasn't about fighting, but about standing tall for what's right, a lesson the gathered neighbors carried home with them as the night closed around the farm in peaceful resolve.